Okay, for naming compounds and writing of chemical formulas, we have first to discuss the ionic compounds. When we say ionic compounds, this is composed of a metal, which is usually the cation, and a non-metal, which is the anion. Pag sinabing cation, may charge siya ng positive charge. And for anion, negatively charged. Makikita sa periodic table natin, it's either sa baba ng periodic table. So kung ito yung periodic table natin, usually nakasulat dito yung mga cations, anions, okay? So dito sa baba, tignan niyo yung mga periodic table niyo, may mga cations, list of cations and anions diyan sa baba. Kung wala naman diyan dun sa likod ng mga periodic table niyo. Okay, so kunyari yan yung periodic table niyo. Okay, so dito may mga nakalista, pakihanap na lang yung mga lists of cations and anions. Okay? Now, for for writing of chemical formulas, meron tayong mga rules na susundin. So, say for example, how do we write the chemical formula of sodium oxide? Okay, so we have sodium oxide. Let's look at the periodic table and hanapin natin si sodium. Sodium will have chemical formula of Na. Okay, Na yan. Na. And then the charge is positive 1. Walang ibang charge ang sodium kundi positive 1 lang siya. So always bear in mind that in writing the formula or the symbol, okay, the formula of the compound, you have to write first the symbol. Okay, symbol of the cation first and then followed by the anion. So yun yung format. Cation first and anion. Ganun dun sa name niya. Cation first and followed by the anion. Okay, so for sodium, it has positive 1. Okay? And then for oxide, yung oxide is titignan natin yung oxygen. Kasi dun siya galing. Oxide. And dun sa, pag sinabing oxide, ang gagamitin natin ay O negative 2. Okay? Once we had this symbol as well as the charges, next step is we crisscross. Crisscross, ang mangyayari dito sa crisscross, yung charge ng cation ay pupunta na maging subscript ng anion. And then yung charge ng anion pupunta na subscript ng cation naman. Okay? So, magpapalit lang sila. Crisscrossing ang tawag dyan. At once na crisscross na, hindi na natin sila isusulat dito na charge. Okay? So, since kanina, ang charge ng sodium ay 1, so pupunta siya as a subscript. Pag sinabi nating subscript, this is the small number written after the symbol. Okay? So subscript, the charge of sodium will then become the subscript of oxygen. So crisscross lang yan. So ito na yung 1. As you could see, hindi na natin isasama yung positive and negative sign. Okay? Yung numerical value lang na 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Iiwan na natin yung symbol na positive and negative. Okay? So ulitin natin, after crisscross, wala na tayong isusulat na charge dyan kasi nga ibinaba na natin sila as subscript. Okay? And that 2 charge of oxygen will now become the subscript of sodium. So nagpalitan lang sila. Okay? And another rule is if the subscript, ayan na. So subscripts are written without plus and minus sign. Wala na siya dito. There's no need to write the subscript if it is 1. So itong 1 na ito, ma-omit na siya. So ang final chemical formula ng sodium oxide ay Na2O. Ang ibig sabihin nito, sa sodium oxide may dalawang atom ng sodium at isang atom ng oxygen. Okay? Another example, so we have here, okay, barium oxide. So barium will have positive 2 and oxide will be negative 2. Okay, so crisscross Ba2O2. But if the subscript, the new subscript, okay, is now, or meron silang common denominator, like this one, 2, ito, 2. Ang common denominator nila, 2. Pwede silang, they could be both divided by 2. So therefore, this 2 subscript, itong new subscript na to, could be reduced into 1. And of course, if that's 1, magiging ma-omit na siya. So therefore, the final symbol or the final chemical formula for barium oxide is BaO. Okay? Now, so maliwanag doon, hindi na natin ilalagay yung plus and minus sign after na crisscross. Kapag parehas na 2, pwedeng ma-cancel out, maging 1, at kapag 1, hindi na sinusulat. Just say for example, meron tayong 4 and 2 dito. Of course, pwede rin naman silang ma-reduce into its lowest form. So, yung 4 magiging 2, yung 2 magiging 1. Okay, so just look for the common denominator so that the new subscript could be reduced. Okay? Now, in case of polyatomic ions, ano yung mga polyatomic ions na tinatawag? Ito, yung mga nitrate, sulfate. Titignan ninyo dun sa list of cations and anions sa mga periodic table ninyo. Pag sinabing polyatomic ions, merong 2 or more elements that comprises or that is found in the cations and anions. Ano yung mga cations na polyatomic? Ammonium. Okay, so ito, NH4 positive 1. So may nitrogen siya, tsaka may 4 na hydrogen. Pero as 1 lang siya na cation, ammonium. Yung buong cation na to, ang charge niya ay positive 1. Meron din tayong example, say, sulfate, SO4 negative 2. Okay, so this is a polyatomic ion kasi may sulfur siya, tsaka may oxygen siya. But the whole of this, ang charge niya ay negative 2. So, ulitin natin, ang tawag natin dyan ay polyatomic ions. Now, going back to the example, so magnesium nitrate. Magnesium is positive 2. Okay, isa lang ang charge ng magnesium. Positive 2 lang siya. And we have nitrate. Hindi ito papangalanan ng nitrogen oxide, ha? Okay, so this is the collective name of NO3 with a charge of negative 1 is nitrate. So patiently look in the list of cations and anions in your periodic table. Okay? So this one would be named as nitrate. So crisscross, the two charge of magnesium will go to the side of nitrate. That will then become the subscript, and the 1 charge of nitrate will then become the subscript of magnesium. Pero ang rule natin, kapag 1, hindi na natin yan isusulat. Kaya magnesium will have no subscript there kasi nga ang na-receive niya ay 1. But for nitrate, kailangan niyang ma-receive ang 2. Okay, so kailangan mag-reflect yan. But since nitrate is a polyatomic ion, kailangan nating gumamit ng parentheses to denote that that 2 will be received by oxygen as well as the nitrogen part of nitrate. Kaya kailangan i-enclose natin sa parentheses. Okay? The parentheses means that that 2 is not only for oxygen but also for nitrate. Okay? So, at another rule, do not change the original subscript. As you could see, the polyatomic ion nitrate has an original subscript of 3. Okay? Ang nire-reduce lang natin, kanina meron tayong rule dito na nire-reduce by finding the least common denominator. Okay? So, for original subscript, hindi natin dapat inire-reduce ito. Dapat yung mga original subscript ng mga polyatomic ions na yan ay makikita pa rin dun sa final answer natin or final chemical formula. Okay? Ulitin natin, we do not change the original subscript of the polyatomic ions. We only reduce those new subscript coming from the crisscrossed charges. Okay? Now, meron din tayong tinatawag na hydrates. Okay? For hydrates, of course, these are compounds with water molecule. Okay? And we are indicating the number of molecules by putting a prefix. Okay? So, parang ganito. Calcium sulfate, this is the anion part. So, kung ano lang yung na-discuss natin kanina, steps 1 to 3, uulitin lang natin. So, calcium will have positive 2. Isa lang ang charge ng calcium sa periodic table. Then sulfate, polyatomic ion, titignan natin yung listahan natin kung SO4 negative 2. Okay? And then crisscross, pero alam natin that they are both 2 and they could be reduced because they have common denominator of 2. And once they could be reduced, they could be omitted kasi nga they could be both 1. Okay? So pwedeng ma-cancel. Okay? So here, ito yung Ca2SO4 2. Pero pwede nating i-cancel yung 2. Kaya mau-omit na si parenthesis. Take note, hindi ko gagalawin yung original subscript na 4 kasi yan ay parte ng original subscript ng polyatomic ion. So for calcium sulfate, it will only be CaSO4. Now, for the hydrate part, sabi niya dihydrate. Di means 2. Okay, so we are using prefixes. So we are going to use a prefix mono if there is only one water molecule, di if there are 2, then tri if there are 3. Then we have tetra for 4 water molecules, and then we have penta for 5 then hexa 6, then we have hepta 7. Okay, so ito yung mga prefixes na gagamitin natin. And then octa 8. Then we also have nona kung may 9 and deca for 10. Okay? So ulitin natin. For the hydrate, meron daw siyang di. Dihydrate yan, di. Hindi de. Dihydrate. So di means 2. So therefore, we are putting 2 before the formula of water. Kasi hydrate is water. So that ito na yun, H2O niya. Okay. Tapos meron tayong gagamitin na dot to separate the ionic part and the hydrate part. Pero sa pangalan, walang dot. Okay? Calcium sulfate dihydrate. Pero pagdating sa formula niya, yung formula ng ionic, merong dot in between or between ng ionic and yung hydrate part. Okay? So this is the calcium sulfate and then this part is the dihydrate. Okay? Ulitin natin. 1 is mono, 2 is di, 3, ang prefixes na gagamitin natin ay tri. So 4 is tetra, 5 is penta, 6 is hexa, 7 is hepta, 8 is nona, 8 is octa, 9 is nona, and 10 is deca. Okay, so those are the prefixes. So kung makakakita kayo ng 5H2O, this one would be named as, this is pentahydrate. Okay? Okay, so ito yung naming. Naming of ionic compounds. So, sabi natin kanina, always metal first, and then the name of the non-metal. Okay, so cation first or the metal, then followed by the name of the non-metal or the anion. Okay, so we have here NaCl. So Na is sodium and Cl is chloride. So therefore that would be sodium chloride. Okay, and then we have here NaBr, so sodium and then bromide. Okay, so we have IDE ending if that is if the anion is not a polyatomic ion. And then we have aluminum chloride and then sodium oxide. Okay? Now, what about if we have metals with various oxidation number? Kasi pagdating kay sodium, aluminum, okay, iisa lang yung mga charges nila, mga alkali metal and alkaline earth metals, yung group 1 and group 2, walang problema dun sa, iisa lang ang mga charges nila. For group 1, positive 1 silang lahat. For group 2, positive 2. Pero pagdating sa transition metal, dun sa gitna, ng periodic table natin, medyo magkakaiba na yung mga iba-iba na. Marami na silang klase ng charges. So, paano natin to papangalanan? Okay, so metal with variable oxidation number or many oxidation number. Okay, so paano daw natin papangalanan? Just write the oxidation number could be represented by a Roman numeral enclosed in a parenthesis. Like this one, iron. Okay, so paano natin malalaman kung anong klase ng iron? So, iba-backtrace natin. So, FeCl2. So, bago nag-criss-cross, so pabalik naman tayo ngayon. So, Fe, originally, yung Cl2 na yan, galing kay Fe or kay iron. And then, since walang charge or walang subscript si iron, of course, chloride will be -1. Okay, so from here, makikita natin na ang iron is using +2. That's why we could name this FeCl2 as iron 2. That 2 represents the charge of the iron being used. Kasi kung titignan natin sa periodic table natin, iron has 2 charges, either +2 and +3. So, alin dito? Kung titignan natin, alin dito sa dalawang itong charge ang nagamit sa FeCl2, of course, sabi natin kanina, binacktrace natin na it's +2. So, therefore, the name would be iron 2 chloride. Or, you could have the Latin name of that metal and change the suffix into OUS for lower. So, tatandaan, the suffix OUS is for lower oxidation number. And IC is for higher oxidation number. So, paano ito? Okay, so kanina sabi natin that iron has 2 charges. It's either +2 and +3. Iron +2 could be named as iron 2 with a Roman numeral enclosed in a parenthesis or ferrous. Paano naging ferrous? Kasi ang Latin name ng iron is ferrum. Ferrum. But we are dropping the ferrum, and change it with OUS. So therefore, that would be ferrous. And then this iron 3 or iron +3 will be named as iron Roman numeral 3, that is enclosed in the parenthesis, or ferric. Because the Latin name of iron is ferrum. Again, we drop the UM and we add IC. So that is ferric. Okay? And another rule is kung hindi natin pwedeng pagsamahin yung Roman numeral tsaka yung IC. Okay? Kung mag-stick ka gagamit ka ng Roman numeral, okay? So, yung English name niya plus the Roman numeral. Okay? Kung gusto mo yung OUS naman, then the Latin name with the OUS. Okay? Hindi pwedeng ironus o kaya hindi pwedeng ferrous 2. Hindi pwede yun. So, mamili lang. Kung Roman numeral, then Roman numeral. Kung OUS, yung Latin name with the suffix of OUS or IC, then that's it. Okay? No mixing. Okay? So, this one, FeCl2 will be iron 2 chloride or ferrous chloride pa rin because the Cl is named as chloride. Then FeCl3 would be named as iron 3 chloride or ferric chloride. Okay? Now, in case of hydrates, ito yung sinasabi kanina that we are going to use prefixes. So, if that is 7, ay sabi ko kanina, heptahydrate. And then, if that is 2, that's di. 5 is penta. Okay? As you can see, walang dot dito sa pangalan, pero dun sa formula may dot. Okay? So, this one is magnesium sulfate. So, ang trick here is, patiently look for the name of the polyatomic ion. Hindi pwedeng maging magnesium sulfur. Hindi pwedeng ganun. Magnesium sulfur oxygen. So, pangit pakinggan. So, dapat maghanap kayo, patiently look for the collective name of SO4 in the list of cations and anions in your periodic table, and that would be sulfate. And Mg is magnesium, so therefore, this chemical formula MgSO4 7H2O is magnesium sulfate heptahydrate. This is calcium sulfate dihydrate. Okay? Oh, copper sulfate. Dapat may mali dito, sorry. CuSO4, copper has two charges. Okay, it's either +1 and +2. Okay, so kung sulfate ay SO4 -2, alin kaya sa dalawa ang ginamit dito? If we use 1, definitely the 2 will go to the side of copper. Pero walang subscript si copper. So more likely, +2 ang ginamit. Okay? So this formula, CuSO4, CuSO4 came from Cu +2 and SO4 -2. Kaya nag-cancel. Kaya wala ka makikita. So therefore, the correct name of this, hindi siya copper sulfate. Kindly take note of the correction. It should be copper with the Roman numeral 2 sulfate. Okay? So dapat to copper with a Roman numeral 2. Okay, dapat mag-insert tayo dyan. Okay? With a Roman numeral 2 sulfate and then pentahydrate. Okay? Or it could be, since higher siya, ang pinili natin between +1 and +2, we are choosing +2, so this is higher oxidation number, so this could be ang Latin name ng copper ay cuprum. So pwede siyang maging cupric. Okay? We drop the and we add the IC. So that is cupric. Cupric sulfate. Again, kung meron na akong IC dito, hindi na ako gagamit ng Roman numeral. Okay? And then of course, pentahydrate. Kindly kindly do the necessary corrections in your notes. This should be copper 2 sulfate, because copper is one of the metals with many charges. Okay? Just to denote that, we are choosing the +2 over the +1. Okay. Now, what about for binary covalent? Again, covalent is between two nonmetals. Okay? This happens, the bond between two nonmetals is covalent bond. Okay? So, for this one, wala nang crisscrossing dito. Okay? Walang crisscross na mangyayari kasi hindi sila cation and anion. We are dealing with two nonmetals, so we just have to write the symbol and then the subscript of the atoms. You have to indicate the subscript of the atom. So say for example, we have that as carbon dioxide. So carbon muna and then oxide. The di represents, alam natin, di represents 2. So therefore, ganyan. Okay, so CO2. Okay? Pag sinabi naman natin dinitrogen, say pentoxide. Okay. The nitrogen and the oxide are both non-metals, or therefore this is a binary covalent. Binary, ibig sabihin dalawang element lang sila. So the di indicates, the di indicates 2. Okay, so you have to write first the nitrogen. So the di indicates 2 atoms of nitrogen, and the pento is 5, or pent. Then oxide is O, and the pent is 5. So therefore that is N2O5. Okay? So ulitin natin, wala tayong crisscrossing dito kasi walang cations and anions sa covalent bonds or covalent binary covalent compounds. Okay? We have, say for example, sulfur, this one, SO2. Okay, how do you name this one? So S is sulfur, O2 is oxygen, but we're not going to name that as oxygen. Rather, we have to remove the suffix and change it to IDE. So this one is sulfur oxide. But we should not neglect the subscript. Kailangan natin i-denote yan. Kaya it could be monosulfur dioxide. Okay, monosulfur kasi kung titignan natin, sulfur has only one, wala siyang subscript. So ibig sabihin 1. Okay? And then the oxygen has 2. So that is di. So monosulfur dioxide. Pero paminsan, yung mono dun sa start ng pangalan ng binary covalent natatanggal. Kaya ang usual na ginagamit ay sulfur dioxide na lang. Okay? Another example. So this one. Carbon, carbon siya. Iisa lang ang carbon. Pwedeng monocarbon. Okay? Tapos yung second naman na non-metal is oxide and there's only one. Dito natin gagamitin yung monoxide. Hindi mono-oxide ha. Monoxide. Okay? Mono means one. Ulitin natin. Mga prefixes. If it's one, mono. 2 is di. 3 is tri. 4 is tetra. 5 is penta. 6 is hexa. 7 hepta. 8 nona. 9 8 is octa. 9 is nona. And 10 is deca. Sorry. Okay? Now, for the acids, okay, para malaman natin na it is the formula of acid, palagi siyang may hydrogen. Okay, sa umpisa. Tapos, nagpapalit lang dun sa non-metal part. Okay? So, for binary, pag sinabing binary, dalawang element lang yan. So, hydrogen at iba pang non-metal. Okay? So, the name would be, always it will start with hydro kapag binary acid. So, it will start with hydro. Okay? So, you have hydro. And then, we have the Cl, or the anion here ends with IDE. Cl will have a name of chloride. What do you do with the IDE? You change it with IC and add. So remove the ID and add IC plus the word acid. Okay, so therefore this is named as hydrochloric acid. Okay, that's the acid name. But if you're going to name it, pwede rin ang other name niya ay hydrogen, because this is hydrogen chloride. Parehas lang din naman sila. But for quizzes that ask na acid ang pangalan, then therefore ganitong gagawin ninyo. Kapag binary, ibig sabihin dalawang element lang yan. So it should always start with hydro. Okay? And then the name of the anion, remove the IDE, replace it with IC plus the word acid. Okay, so that is hydrochloric acid. Okay, then this one is hydrogen bromide. This is bromide, so remove the IDE and add IC acid. Okay, so that is hydrobromic acid. So if you're going to have HF, therefore this is hydrofluoric acid. Always bear in mind, kapag binary acid lang siya, palagi meron siyang prefix na hydro. Meron siyang hydro sa unahan ng pangalan niya. Now, how about for naming of oxyacid? Okay? So, we have here, pag oxyacid naman ng sinabi, meron ng oxygen na kasama. Hindi na siya binary. Okay? So, tatlong element na sila dito. Ito, may H2CO3. Okay? So, ang pangalan kasi ng kasama ni hydrogen, this one could be named as hydrogen carbonate. Okay? But that is not an acid's name. So what you do is, you change the AT. Okay? So palitan daw natin, you drop the AT as ATE from the name of the anion, then add IC and the word acid. Of course, you have to remove the hydrogen. So therefore, this is carbonic acid. Okay? The second one is hydrogen. Tapos hanapin natin yung pangalan ng NO3 sa listahan ng inyong periodic table, and that would be nitrate. Okay? So what you do is, of course, the hydrogen will be replaced by the word acid kasi yan yung kanyang, yan common lahat sa kanyang acid ang hydrogen. And then the name of the the name of the anion ATE will be replaced by the by a suffix IC. So therefore, this is nitric acid. Okay? And then of course, this is sulfuric acid and this is chloric acid. Okay? So ulitin natin yung kanina, yung rule natin dito. If the name of the anion ends with IDE, like bromide, okay, we are removing the IDE and replace it with IC acid plus the word hydro. Okay? Now, if the name of the the anion ends with ATE, like this, carbonate, ATE naman this time. Okay? You remove the ATE, still replace it with IC and the word acid, but this time there's no more hydro before. Okay? So, yun yung pinagkaiba ng anion that ends with ATE and the anion ends with IDE. Okay? Yung may IDE, meron silang hydro, pero ito wala. Okay? Pero parehas silang ending with IC. Okay? Meron silang IC sa kanilang pangalan. Ito, ic. Ic acid sila. Parehas dito. Ic acid. Okay? Okay, so ito. Okay, so the IC denotes that it's a common acid. Now, for OUS, OUS is for those anion that ends with ite. Okay, so parang ganito. If that is hydrogen nitrite, okay, ito na lang pala. Here. This is hydrogen chloride. But that is not the acid's name. Okay? How do you convert this to acid's name? So, of course, the hydrogen will be replaced by the word acid. Okay? And then the ITE will be changed and will be replaced by OUS. So, chlorous acid. Okay? So, may tatlong rules sa naming ng acid. If the name of the anion, okay, ito na lang. If the name of course, acids always has hydrogen on them. So, nagbabago lang yung identity ng anion na kasama nila. If the name of the anion ends with IDE, like chloride, bromide, okay, the rule is you have to remove the IDE, you replace it with IC plus the word acid, okay? And of course, you're going to put hydro before the name. Now, if the name of the anion, second rule, if the name of the anion ends with ATE, just like the sulfate, chlorate, nitrate, you have to remove the ATE, replace it with IC, and the word acid. So, parang parehas sila ng IC acid. Kanya lang, pinagkaiba lang ng nitong first two, wala nang hydro dito. Okay? Empty na siya. Just to make distinction between those that ends with IDE. Okay? Hindi natin lalagyan. Yung mga may IDE lang ang lalagyan. Okay? And then, of course, those anion that ends with ITE, like nitrite, sulfite, okay? So, you remove that ITE, you replace it with OUS plus the word acid. Okay? So, usually, ito lang yung ending ng mga acids. IC acid, hydro, IC acid, and OUS. Okay? Okay, so that's it.